Fight, 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 fight.
Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And today, I'm extremely happy to be joined by my friend, Mr. Eric Hunley. How's it going, brother?
What's up, man? Busy week.
Yeah, well, you have embroiled yourself intentionally so and justifiably in a little bit of controversy, which we are going to get to. I'll preview it in just a second. We're going to get to it. We're not going to jump right in directly to it, mainly because people know me. They know that I'm always late, especially when I'm on Camelot stream, and that's usually due to dirty talk behind the scenes. But also, I'm always late, and then I tend to like give a little bit of time at the beginning of the show because people get the notifications or whatever. And I have, unfortunately for myself and for the audience, created a culture of getting into the show after a little bit of introduction and exposition. So what we're going to do in just a little bit is I'm not doing a full direct examination episode with Eric, but I'm going to do a little bit of an interview in that style. I hope most of you know Eric and his content. I'm going to put his links in the description of both Rumble and YouTube in just a second. I'll get around to it in a moment. I hope you're familiar with his content. If you're not, though, I want you to kind of get to know him a little bit. I've gotten to know him somewhat over the past couple of years because I've appeared on his show quite a few times. If you don't know this, every Friday, if you like lawyers because you're mentally broken or traumatized or whatever, he gets together a panel of like somewhere between 6 and 10 assholes to sit there and talk about any sort of legal news in the legal miasma that's going on. So you'll see people like me rarely because my wife decided to schedule our chiropractic appointments for our whole family right in the middle of the show. So if I can be on, it's only for the first like 40 minutes. But me rarely. Often you'll see Nate the lawyer, Viva Fry, Joe, Good Logic. You'll sometimes see like Rob from Law and Lumber, Kurt, Legal Vices, guys who are on my channel a lot and that I've made friends with appear on Eric's show a whole bunch. And you get a lot of legal news and a lot of legal jokes and memes. So it's basically like talking to your dad if he had a law degree and more arrogance. And there's like 10 of them. All at once.
10 times the mania.
Runkle is often there as well. By the way, Runkle, how you doing, brother? I meant it when I said we're going to do a show very soon. I'm going to reach out to you about doing a show. I think next week Drex is going to be here. So I don't know if I'm going to do any shows that have anything to do with law, if it's just going to be dem hose or whatever Drex wants to talk about. But I haven't talked to him in a while. So Drex is going to be here like I think most of next week. So probably the week after, though. I would love to get you on for a show. And tomorrow, guys, Andrea Burkhart will be on the show, and we're going to be talking a lot about the Kohlberger case. And I think I am going to do a full direct examination episode with Andrea Burkhart because I kind of did when I first had her on, but I want to do an in-depth sort of walk through her career and what has brought her to YouTube and stuff like that. So that's going to be tomorrow. I hope you'll join me for that, 11 p.m. Central. But with that, we are going to talk about Eric's very unique situation. But if you don't know him, like I said, I'm putting the links in the description on YouTube right now. You have 3 channels, right? Because you're
4.
Wait.
They keep growing.
I've got America's Untold Stories, Eric Hunley, News and Panels. What's the 4th one?
4th one is Nate and Eric, which will
right.
be winding back up next week. I didn't put it in the chat yet, but that's that will be coming back.
Should I put them in? Like,
Sure,
should I put that in the chat? Is that just youtube.com / Nate
cool
and Eric?
Subscribing a bunch. Yeah. I never want to over ask on things, but yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can look up Nate and Eric. It should come up, I think.
Look, this man is organized enough to have his channels separated by topic and theme. So you can go and subscribe to all of them and get a ton of content on a ton of different subjects, or you can go and pick and choose like what content best suits the thing that you're looking for. If you like Nate the Lawyer, I love Nate the Lawyer. He's great, a good friend. And if you like him, you know, he and Eric have had a show for a while called Nate and Eric, and they discuss all sorts of stuff there. So that would be a great one. But really, any of his channels are going to have tons of information and a different perspective than someone like I would have, just because you've got different experiences coming into it. And you're one that I hear a lot about, people really praise, is America's Untold Stories. And that's kind of genesis of this claim. And that's the show you do with a guy named Mark Robert, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one that's kind of led into this trouble. We have, I don't even remember, it's 25 or more Alec Baldwin Rust tragedy stories that spawned out of a one-off episode.
Just one episode. Now you've got 25 different stories that have come out of that.
I think so. And then there's other ones where we bring up stuff that's happened to it. But in that time frame, Mark is very connected. He, works with Oliver Stone, Hollywood writer. I don't know if you've heard of the movie The Recruit with Colin Farrell and Al Pacino.
Yeah.
That was actually Mark's movie. He wrote the script, submitted it. It got stolen from him. He won it in a lawsuit, but the CIA actually took it over. So we're really highly skeptical about the CIA. Believe me, there's a lot of stories to tell.
Right.
And
yeah, I know that Mark knows, well, how do I say this politely? Too much shit, like for his own good. But I never know the origin of it. Sometime I'll have to I've only had a conversation with him like one time on your show. And so I'll have to talk to him at some point and get kind of into that, because it's he's been through it. And like just you telling this story right now, very briefly, I'm like, what the hell? Like,
the dude knows everybody. He is a drug counselor. So a drug counselor who lives in Hollywood. Think of the people he's come across.
He counsels drugs?
He counsels people who do them. It's not a how-to clinic. It's more of a get-off clinic. But he's really
he tries
tight
to get people to stop doing drugs. Okay.
Yeah. He's really tight with Dr. Drew. They worked together for years.
Sure.
Anyway, his entire history is amazing. I'm like the most boring pedestrian person in the world next to him. His mother dated Woody Allen, or double dated with Woody Allen. His father was a drummer in the opening band for Lenny Bruce, and we go on and on and on and on and on. I'm down there with him in Florida when we're at the studio, local studio. I don't know if you've been there.
One time I really want to go back. I had so much fun in Miami, and the locals guys are so cool.
Yeah, none of them were there except for the one guy, and I was there with David, and we were filming a show. But then Mark brings a friend that he runs into in Miami. The guy, Steve Gibb. Have you ever heard of? I don't know who
Steve Gibb is. Who's that?
Okay, have you heard of the Gibb brothers?
No.
Robin Gibb, Barry Gibb. Have you heard of a band called the Bee Gees?
I have heard of the Bee Gees.
And Andy Gibb, another star. Yeah.
Wait, so
that's their kid. He is the surviving Bee Gees person's kid.
Gotcha. Okay. So you can tell by the way he walks that he's a woman's man.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. No, so he just knows all of these people then.
Yeah,
because
he knows so many people. It's astounding.
It's like a weird function of living in the right part of LA is you just come across all these people that to us are like, oh wow, that's like really interesting that you know them, and they're like, yeah, they go to my grocery store or whatever.
No, he knew him in New York too. He used to hang out with Howard Stern's writers. He worked for National Lampoon as an editor.
Ooh.
Yeah. Here's the dude's got a lot. So anyway, that's part of the series of America's Untold, is kind of untold culture and pop culture history, especially, and history that is either unknown, like Smedley Butler, was kind of forgotten, a general from World War II time frame, to a ton of JFK stuff, which gets really, really deep into the weeds because he worked with Oliver Stone writing an 8-part miniseries on Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
It's kind of dictated a lot by screenplays that have been rejected that he did all the research for, or experiences he's had in his life. So
sure,
it's a pretty crazy fun show.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's always interesting when you meet people whose stories are so like wild that, like, I see a bunch of people in the chat, they're like, I don't know if I trust Mark's stories. Well, that's what makes them interesting. It's like, and the cool part is whether you trust them or not is irrelevant. They're either true or they're not, and they're going to be entertaining because they're exploring this facet of life that most people will never have access to. And I think that in general is just what sells on YouTube, no matter who you are.
Sure.
Is when you provide, especially like what we do, you provide access to a world that people either don't have time or they're just like location prevented from getting into. I think that's why the legal side of YouTube is really taken off over the past couple of years, because for so long, law is inaccessible. It's too expensive. You have to spend too much time getting too much of an education and go through this pompous system made by the worst people ever to even like get into it. So when someone comes out and they can break it down and provide that access, people are looking for it. But that expands.
It's dry as F.
Oh yeah, most of it is terribly boring. Like every time people ask me to cover like a specific legal topic, I have to, and I'm not good at this, but I have to resist every fiber of my being saying, but it's gonna be boring. Like it's not gonna be funny or interesting. It's gonna be one corporate asshole writing documents and then another corporate asshole writing documents. It's like watching the Microsoft versus the FTC thing in regards to the Sony acquisition, which I've been following a little bit. And there's like sprinklings of interesting stuff. And there's a couple jabs. But it's like, you really got to focus in on the stuff that happens, because most of it is just like, well, it's a business acquisition.
Sure.
Who cares? But yeah. And I love that, that aspect of YouTube, because there's so many fields that I'm personally interested in, and there's access into them now like never before. It's like, well, I'm not going to be, a structural engineer, but I can watch a structural engineer tell me why building 7 doesn't exist.
Sure. Well, and that's, I mean, who are the popular lawyers? It's who can break it down or point out the boring ass part where the shade is.
Yeah, and we know by the numbers that Legal Eagle Devin is the most popular, and he's the best at it.
No, if you sell your soul early, you can get the numbers.
That guy. Oh man, I have been meaning to go back to his channel to like just find a video to make fun of, and every time I do, I'm like, I know if I just go to Devin's channel, I can pick any video and just like pick it apart, but I just don't want to see him. He's so gross, slimy.
Yep, complete with the books.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't even know if that's a real back. I think it is, because I think his law firm probably paid for it. But anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about Legal Eagle. We're not here for him. We're here for you. So the story we're gonna get to in a little bit, guys, as a preview, Eric and Mark, as he mentioned, did some reporting on the Rust shooting. If you don't remember, because like it kind of flared up and then just blew away in like magic.
Almost 2 years old.
Yeah.
It's going on forever.
Right. But it like would pop up and then it would like wind down and then it pops up. Sure. And then the ultimate resolution is they just dropped the case. Like they just completely dropped the case on Alec Baldwin, I think. Mostly. So there's still something going on.
It's not with prejudice.
Okay. So they could bring it back, but.
And it's a new team.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But so it like would flare up and then it would kind of settle down. And then like the recent news is his dismissal without prejudice, but you guys did some reporting on it. And from that, now you are being asked to reveal your sources on this information to a New Mexico district attorney. Is that right?
Right. The special prosecutor who's appointed to take over. There were two new ones, Carrie Morrissey, who I have now spoken with, sort of. And her partner, Jason, I forgot his last name. But they took over for the person before it, Reeb, I believe her name was, who had a conflict of interest because she was elected to the state senate. So she ultimately gave up and said, okay, never mind. Part of the reason that pops up and down is there are so many twists and turns and odd moves. It's crazy. Like nothing's going on. And then Alec will do an interview and they'll say, I didn't pull the trigger. Or Andrea Reed, that's it. Or they will appoint this person. And then there's a conflict because they're the state senator. So that's a problem. Or they will file the charges, not only involuntary manslaughter, but what do you call that? An enhancement?
Right, the gun enhancement.
Yep. Right, which didn't exist until after the shooting actually occurred. So it had to be removed from the charges later. So things like that really, I think, keep it up there and going.
Right, and it's interesting because there's this inherent distrust of the elite that people have built over the elite kind of getting this special treatment throughout the years. And so it's a justified distrust, but I know that it causes some things that make sense and are logical in this case to immediately be reacted to as if they're illogical. And one of them that you mentioned was the gun enhancement that was mysteriously at first to all of us, just like seeing the headline and reacting on our gut was like, what the hell? There's obviously a gun involved. The enhancement obviously applies. But then when you look at it, you go, oh, wait, it kind of seems like that enhancement was passed in response to this shooting. And it came after it went into legal effect afterwards. So it legally made perfect sense to drop the enhancement. But we're so skeptical of Hollywood's influence, the influence of the elite, the ties that government will have with the production of movies, because if people don't know, a lot of movies filming locations are incentivized by state and local governments with tax benefits or other sort of promises that help them with the cost of production and stuff like that, because they bring jobs and they bring people and they bring attention to the areas. So we have this inherent distrust. And so anything that happens in this case, like we have to always measure our responses with how much of this is me not trusting fucking government and Hollywood, and how much of this is sound. And I still say this one stinks.
Well, I mean, there's a ton of issues with it. And you do have a person who has more money than the state of New Mexico defending himself in many ways. So he can't outspin them. And he has a crack legal team. But again, if they self-own, what do you want? That going back to the enhancement charge, they couldn't apply the previous enhancement charge because that had a requirement, from what I understand, that the victim had to be under duress. Well, this is like the one time in history she wasn't under duress because this was a film and they point guns at each other. Right. It was
a screw up. It's probably reckless. It's definitely negligent, but it was unexpected. Like he's not threatening her at the time. He's not intending to put her in. I mean, based on the narrative that's given, I know some people think that there's some, like deep tie stuff going on. I've heard bandied about like involving Hillary Clinton donations and stuff like that.
And she was going to be working on a movie coming up next. All of that. I mean, she has an incredible past. Her family connections are amazing and interesting too. But if you're going to take somebody out, I could think of a lot easier ways for that to happen that would actually make sense. The amount of chess playing and strategy, it'd be like the craziest Rube Goldberg setup you'd ever imagine to pull that off like it happened.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of these things tend to look to me, because I'm a skeptic of skepticism at the same time as I'm a skeptic of reality. And it's like I don't trust anyone or anything, because there's interest in propagating this sort of skeptical view. I mean, it's profitable for some people and stuff, but it's like also I go, I don't actually know what to believe, because while I do think it's very complicated and ridiculous to pull off something like this, that doesn't actually preclude someone from doing it either. So it's so weird, but I don't put a lot of stock in this being some sort of hit. but it has been thrown out there, and we have to kind of like temper all of this stuff into that. But ignoring that sort of cynical take that this was some intentional thing and she would have known she was in danger, we could just go ahead and take it on faith. This is the result of some level of negligence or recklessness, and it was not an expected thing. So yeah, you don't have that duress portion of it. You just have someone who got shot who shouldn't have been shot by someone who shouldn't have shot her but didn't mean to. And then we get to the real questions behind this: is he criminally liable? And my feeling on this has always been, well, yes. I don't see what about this being a movie set and someone else checking the gun means that he is not liable for pointing a gun at someone and pulling a trigger. Whereas when I go, I got to have a line of 30 Marines, 30 Marines armsmen who, or armory specialists or whatever, check the gun and hand it to me. And if there's a bullet in there and I pull the trigger and point it at someone, I'm liable for that bullet going down and shooting that person. Like, no matter how much trust I have in the person handing me the gun, I don't see why Alec Baldwin would get special treatment there. That's always been kind of my perspective on it, and I still maintain that. And that's why I feel like it still feels like some sort of special treatment going on. I know not everybody agrees with me.
It is special treatment. I think that's where it gets really confusing, because there's a lot of things about it that are absolutely unique. It's a movie.
Right.
And every other scenario we're talking about would not be a movie. It would be normal life. Like, there is no reason to ever point a gun at somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And even
unless it's in a movie and it's part of, and so that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of,
well, maybe because
it's confusing.
When you look at this case though, and you like break down some of the narratives about the scenario, and I know there's some conflicting ones even from Alec himself, but the idea of him pointing the gun, the whole idea is that he's pointing the gun when they're not actually shooting at the time, and they're not supposed to be where they are. So while guns do get pointed at cameras and stuff like that, they're setting up the shot when he points the gun, and it's not at a time where he should have pointed the gun in that direction. So my understanding, at least from some of the narrative, is that he shouldn't have been pointing the gun at her, even though it was a movie where a gun was pointed in that direction, because during that sort of rehearsal, she shouldn't have been there for the shot, even for the practice shot.
There's problems with all of that. Again, the circumstances are completely unique. There's something that you call video village that is on the set. Well, the camera crew left that morning. They walked off the set. That included the video village operator. Now, video village is like a remote monitoring station that is outside of the church. They were inside of a small church. And normally speaking, she would have been outside of the church looking at a monitor, asking for things to happen. But they didn't have the person who operated the monitors. They walked off. So she was in there actually behind the camera.
Yeah.
So it's a unique scenario. We got another one. COVID protocols. The armorer couldn't be there. She wasn't deemed necessary, very ironically, to be next to him with the gun. That's another odd one. So what he's putting forth is that the shot was being framed.
Right.
Like you're saying, okay, I want to get a shot of the gun. So boom, boom, here, hold it. How many times have you seen a picture or, in a movie, a gun, and you can literally see the bullet tips inside of like a big ass revolver? It's pretty common, right?
Great shot.
But that's what she was actually lining up.
Right.
But she was behind the camera. So she was in line with the shot and was shot. And I'm not trying to be funny about it. I don't know another term because it's called a shot.
Yeah, of course.
So that's weird. Everything about it is like just a confluence of horrible events. Now,
right, which is often how these things happen, because tons of movies get shot all the time that involve guns, multiple actors, all types of shots, and most of the time people don't get shot, and even more rarely do people die from it. So like,
it's more rare than that. There's 3 incidents total.
Yeah, you got Brandon Lee.
Right, and then John Eric Hexum. And John Eric Hexum took a gun with a blank and pointed it to his head. And, well, don't do that.
I didn't even know. I don't know who that is or what movie was that?
It was a TV series. It literally just slipped my mind. But in the 80s, it was a TV series. He was on the set, just pointed that to his head, and that was it. You know, even if it's a blank, there's enough compression if it's close enough.
Right.
It took him out. So
yeah,
that one doesn't count.
It puts a hole in your head, and then all of the escaping air pressure basically pops the stuff inside your head. It's gross.
Yeah, it's like somebody hitting him with a bat or something, or whatever. Horrible.
Yeah. So I didn't know about that one. The main one I remember is Brandon Lee, because that happened when I was in, I guess, junior high. I was watching a ton of Brandon Lee and action movies and stuff like that. So, and The Crow was awesome.
Freak incident there. That was a case of they were using dummies, and dummy rounds are essentially real bullets that have had the gunpowder removed and the primer struck.
Right.
There's 2 kinds. There's a proper kind that essentially has the primer removed, a hole drilled in the side, and a BB inside, like a wooden BB that you could shake and go, oh, I hear a click, click, click. It's good, right? This particular dummy, the primer had not been struck. And because the bullet was inside, it was just enough to compress it that the primer hit and the bullet just went into the barrel. So it was just sitting in the barrel. Then they change up the shot, load a blank to get the effect and the sound. The blank hits the bullet, and that's what did it.
Yeah.
Very
well, that's unfortunate. Well, I don't mean to do this, but blam! Not good. Not good.
Freaky.
Okay, let's do this kind of I started skipping past my original plan, which is always a good but terrible thing. Let me hit a couple chats, and then we'll rewind back into your story a little bit, and then we'll get back into this subject and how you have become embroiled in it, what this district attorney or the special prosecutor is asking you for, all of that stuff, and why I will say that it's an illegal request, and why I see it as harassing. So Master Lions gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you so much, Master Lions, for doing that. Dawnbreaker says, Nick, did you see the case in Australia of a lady falsely accusing her husband of doing things with her daughter, then leading meth heads to torture him with a chainsaw? She only got 7 years. Wow. I'd love for you to go over the case. No, I did not. That sounds horrifying. Wow. Okay. Wild. Grifty says, 5 years ago, my life fell apart. Greatest betrayal a man can endure. Separated from my kids, sleeping in a car. Today, I own a business, have custody of my kids, and married my best friend in 3 days. Life gets better. Toast me, bro. Well, I guess.
Cheers, man. Awesome.
I guess for that mediocre story, I could give you a toast. I mean, it's like, it kind of sounds like, oh, I went to the video store and rented a tape or whatever. Just kidding, man. Just kidding. To Grifty, to the deepest valleys leading to the next peak. May you be forever on your quest to the summit, my brother, and may it always be looking up. Cheers to you. Cheers to your upcoming marriage, and I hope everything for you is nothing but sunshine.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have. Wait, who is this? Tarkina 53 over on Local says, Eric, do you think any of this is tied to Mark being so close to the former special prosecutor?
No, because it's all directed at me.
Right. So Mark, but Mark has ties to the former special prosecutor on the case?
No, not directly. Mark reached out to her over the course of our covering it and said, hey, I'm a journalist, right, with the LA Times, blah, 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 and got some communication. She's really MAGA. Mark likes MAGA people, and got on okay. And we even, shared her link out and raised a little bit of money for her.
There you go. Okay. So, but that, that's between Mark and that person, and this is directed at you. Well,
right.
Let's rewind the tape a little bit and find out who the hell you are. You are Eric Hunley. Tell me about Eric Hunley.
Eric Hunley, podcaster, accidentally YouTuber, I guess. Didn't want to do YouTube because I have a face for radio, as your chat has very happily pointed out early on.
They're lovable assholes, but they are assholes.
Yep. Definitely all of that. Actually, I was on your channel 2021, I think, like around January timeframe.
You know what? I was thinking, I said you'd never been on, but when you got your channel deleted, I think you came on. Was that when you came on?
I was on before it got deleted, ironically. I believe.
Well, that was probably why then.
Oh, it could be. It could be. They were like, oh, hell. But it was before you had 100K.
Yeah. It would have been because, well, no, I hit 100K right at the end of 2020. So
okay, so then it was right after. I mean,
it would have been right after.
I think so. I can't remember. It was either December or January because I had a day job and I had like a vacation time period and was able to do the all night thing.
Right.
Then.
Yeah.
But I do remember that because I had a lavalier microphone, which I had placed wrong, and my breathing, and it was a really obnoxious, terrible thing.
Yeah. It's, man, what did we talk about? That was so long ago. I mean, when you think about that's 3.5 years. Or no,
I don't even know.
2.5 years. But yeah, and everything has changed so much since then for both of us, right? Like you said, I would have just eclipsed 100,000 viewers if it was in January of 2021 or subscribers. You would be pushing towards, like, at that point, pushing towards 20K because I think you got cut at like 18K or something like that. That's
that's right.
Got deleted.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was 15K. I literally got 15,000 subscribers in the same stream on Valentine's Day, mind you, that YouTube gave me a bit of fornication on my channel there. Yeah, and I hit 15,000 subs. Saw that number, and all of a sudden got a text from David, Viva Fry, saying, "Did your stream get cut off? What happened?" And I'm like, "What?" And then I saw an email coming in saying my channel was gone.
Yeah.
Because the StreamYard, you don't have that visibility.
Right. Yeah, you're just going. StreamYard's still up, still recording.
Yeah, it was really freaky. Actually, it was freaky later because I was able to pull the recording off of StreamYard. So I believe that's all out there. I don't remember. I put it on Rumble, but yeah, it was a very uncomfortable time.
Right. It's terrifying when that happens. And it's always like you're just doing your thing and you get deleted. And I can't remember what happened in your case, but there was some bogus reason.
I was interviewing a crypto CEO, and the theory is that there's so many crypto scams that somehow in YouTube, to be generous, they had determined, hey, this is a channel that's never done anything with crypto, and all of a sudden he's interviewing. All of a sudden it's a crypto CEO. Right. And I think they were offering like a crypto thing with X money back or whatever the CEO was doing. So the theory is that they just went, and rather than alerting me or doing something else or even doing a strike, they just said, well, we'll just remove the entire channel. And keep this in mind that I've been a YouTube Premium, Red, whatever the name is, since 2008. Yeah. I've been paying the bastards monthly, and I could not even log in and comment on a channel. And you know this because you've had your channel removed. You literally do not exist. There's no going to YouTube Studio. There's no protesting. All you can do, which I did, was create a video and talk to you, talk to David, talk to every single friend that I have on Twitter. And if I didn't have those friends, I'd probably be doubly fucked. Excuse me.
Yeah, you'll never get if that's the annoying thing about YouTube is the only way to get anything done is actually through Twitter. Like using YouTube's internal systems is bogus for the most part.
Yeah, it's like you have to humiliate them. Like, yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. And yeah, so the other kind of annoying part of that is, so you're interviewing the CEO of a crypto company and they're like, this must be a scam, terminate it. But then there are channels that are huge that get co-opted through a phishing scam or whatever, and then they get like all their stuff gets deleted, they get converted to a crypto channel, and they reach out to YouTube, and it takes weeks sometimes to get them back. And it's like, don't you just have a log of the obvious changes that occurred on this channel? Like, this should be easy to spot and correct. And your channel exhibited nothing of those types of symptoms. They literally delete everything. They change the name of the channel, and then they just spam, or they have a live stream going of a pre-recorded Elon Musk speech about crypto that runs, and they just soak up super chats and try and extract money, and they spam the crypto link in the chat. It's like so clearly obvious that this is happening, and they should be able to identify the history of the channel. And yet that'll take weeks to unravel. You're thinking they're like, nope, boop, delete, get out.
Yeah. Congrats to me.
You won. You won the lottery. Okay, so
and of course David's like, oh, this is going to make you famous. I'm like, really? Come on now.
Yeah. But it does, like, at the end of the day, it brings attention to your channel in a way that is genuine, right? Because a bunch of people can always be like, hey, check out my friend Eric, and they'll be like, whatever. But when something happens, like, hey, look at this guy, he's doing this stuff, he gets canceled, bogus cancellation, support him. And then when you come back, you know, people have interest in what you're doing. Why did this guy get canceled? What's going on? And it does kind of generate that sort of grassroots organic interest that you're looking for in this type of industry. But I want to go back to something, because you said you're Eric Hunley, podcaster, accidental YouTuber. You didn't really want to get into it, but that's not where you started in life. So what did you do before all of this?
I've been a corporate drone for years. I mean, I was in the Army, then got out, worked for Nextel and Gateway. Then for a little bit, I taught at the University of Arizona Extended U, some 20 plus courses on, PHP programming.
You're like an
Nobel.
IT thing.
Oh, just a nerd, just hardcore nerd. Totally embarrassing. Yeah, exactly. Wrote some books, put them on Amazon, and got another corporate gig. Just did that for a while, which I actually finally quit this year in March to do this crazy thing called YouTube full time.
Right. How's that been for? Like, I mean, not like success wise. I mean, that's a big change. Like, you have to go,
oh
okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, I paid off the house, paid off the mortgage, paid off the car, had zero credit card debt. So essentially it was completely debt free when I did it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good way to do it. I want you to go back and restart, but I want you to go to med school first. Like, just accrue a massive amount of debt and then try it. That'll be more fun. That's the that's hardcore mode.
I'll be right behind you. You go. I'll see you next week.
So very, very cool. So you're into this podcasting, accidental YouTube journalism thing. What made you want to shift into, like, I do this corporate stuff, but inside me is a budding journalist, but like less irritating than journalists are?
I always wanted to. I mean, I did drama in high school for a little bit. I debated at state, and when I was in the Army, I had a horrible experience with that, because essentially when I went in, I was broke. I was trying to get stories published, and I was getting published in what was called the Manhattan Mercury. And keep in mind, it's Manhattan, Kansas, the little M. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be realistic here. And I guess I just found it was 2 stories, I guess, in the Kansas City Star that got picked up, not one. But I mean, this was the early 90s, $50 a story or so. You got to wait a month on a check. Donating plasma twice a week to, eat is not comfortable.
No,
so
that's rough.
I was like, okay, Manhattan, Kansas, Fort Riley's near there. I can go ahead and volunteer. I tested really well on the ASVABs or whatever. And, coincidentally, I tested and qualified for every job available in the military. But at the time, according to MEPS, there were only 4 jobs available in the Army, shockingly. And these were infantry, engineer, I believe mechanic, and cook. And
did you pick cook?
Of course I did, because the cook had a bonus. Yeah. And I was told that, with all your articles and all your writing and stuff, you might as well take that one. And then once you get to your duty station, they'll just let you go right for the paper because, you've got talent and blah, 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 blah. Oh, no. Oh, no. It turns out that if I had picked any of the other 3, that would probably be true. But I picked the one that had a bonus because I was like, hey, I'm broke. I could get a couple of grand as a kickback for signing up. And if you take a bonus, there's extra structures in there that you will not do any other job. You are stuck in that position. And when I say stuck, I mean stuck.
Right.
So anyway, continuing on, while I was there, I still wrote for the base paper. They fought to try to get me there. I had a person in charge of the cooking place who said, oh, hey, if you write for us and help us win this award, there's something called a Hunley, which is like the best mess hall or dining facility. We don't call them mess halls, or dining facilities in the Army.
That's like being the best McDonald's. That's awesome.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but hey, everybody's got to achieve something. And truthfully, there were really talented people. I mean, we had one guy there who was doing full ice sculptures. So
yeah,
there were talented people. And then there was me. But anyway, this guy was looking to get promoted to sergeant major, which is a very high rank in the Army. It's an E9. There's nothing higher except for one person who is an E10 enlisted, and that's sergeant major in the Army. So he was an EA at the time, wanted to get the E9, getting that award and everything. We get it to him. So he made a deal. Okay, you do this for me and I'll get you out of there. I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear that did not happen.
You got the award, but you didn't get out of there.
That is correct. I wrote all the articles. I was the proper bitch and I got nothing.
Why would you listen to anybody in the Army who is superior to you on like a promise that they would fulfill? Like, why would you think that would happen?
Because 1, I didn't know, and 2, what else am I going to do? I mean, who else am I going to go to?
That's true.
I
guess that's a good point.
I have pretty limited options. People ask which duty station. I was at Fort Irwin, California, which is the worst duty station. So worst job, worst duty station.
Perfect.
1-2 punch. Yeah, I lived in Barstow, California. Now, this is how things work with Fort Irwin, and I'll give you an idea. It is 35 miles from the gate to the nearest town, which is Barstow, right?
Sure, that's a ways.
Well, here's where it gets better. It's another 15 miles to the base proper. Some asshole figured out that they have to pay if you have to travel like 50 miles every way, like extra money. So they bought a stretch of land. I'm not kidding you. 15 miles or so, whatever, down the road. And they stuck the guard gate there.
Yeah.
And said, okay, well, that's the base. So they didn't have to pay any more money. And there was a waiting list for a year to on-base housing.
Right.
So keep in mind, my duty time started at 4 a.m. I lived in Barstow. Anyway, so that's how.
So it's like an hour drive in. You don't get compensated for it because they moved the gate in the base specifically to keep you from getting cut. That's beautiful. God, I love the U.S. military.
Oh, and it gets better too, because the way the scheduling worked was you would work late one day and early the next day.
Oh, God.
So I would get off at about 7 o'clock at night, and I'd have to be back at 4 in the morning.
Yuck.
And figure 2 hours of traveling in between. So yeah, it was a treat. Essentially, I volunteered to go to the field And so I would just stay out in the desert and do whatever I was out there. And then I volunteered to invade Haiti.
Wow. That's good. Haiti deserved it.
Yeah, except I wound up in Cuba.
Oh, yeah. I heard you were stationed at Guantanamo or something.
Yeah, I was in Gitmo and actually worked with people from Camp X-Ray before the Camp X-Ray became Camp X-Ray.
Sure.
You know, with waterboarding and everything else post 9/11.
How many Muslims did you waterboard personally?
I never met a single one while I was in the Army because I was during the Clinton years.
Not enough. This was the answer. Okay. Very disappointing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm kidding.
Balls or no balls, right? No.
Beards or no beards on your waterboard victims. No. Okay. So this is Clinton time. So this is before like the Bush era, the Iraq war, all of that stuff that happens. All right. So you do your time in the Army, you get out of the Army, you move into the tech world, like the IT world, right?
Yeah.
Why do you go into IT after being a cook in the Army?
Okay, well, I wasn't always a cook in the Army.
I skipped that part. That's my fault.
No problem. In order to get out of being a cook in the Army, first I, volunteered to invade Haiti, wound up in Cuba.
Right.
Spent some time there as a cook, but did everything but cook. Driving forklifts, whatever. One fortunate thing was in California, I got a magical thing called a military driver's license. And they didn't have many people who had it in Cuba. So that meant at least a couple hours a day, I could be driving the food to different places and not have to be preparing the food.
Sure.
So any which way, I was starting to learn as I went, Nick. You see, that's how it goes. It's like you get screwed sideways, but you start to go, how can I find lubrication?
That's that high ASVAB score. That's what that gets you.
There you go. It takes a while, but I get there. Anyway, so I did that, went into Cuba, then I decided to re-up. And in the Army, you could, if you re-enlist, you can do one of two things. Either change your job or change your duty station. And I was in a quandary because I had the shittiest job at the shittiest duty station.
Sure.
So
you can only change one, and you've got the worst of both. Perfect.
Right. So what I did was I was talking to somebody. I found out about a job called it's a cargo specialist, essentially. And the only places you could be stationed are Fort Eustis or Fort Story, Virginia.
Okay.
So the strategy was 88 Hotel. I changed my job to this one, and I'm automatically out of there.
Right. They have to move you to a different station. Okay, that makes sense. Got it.
Right. So, and I did that. And because I did that and I had learned things, because I was already enlisted, I became a sergeant, or I qualified to be a sergeant before I even got there. So I was already of rank, and I didn't have to like go hang out in the barracks with the other students. I found an apartment and I deliberately put it on the Virginia Beach side of the water, if you will, and drove back and forth and then talked to the person. And I wound up ultimately, if you will, at Fort Story. We called it Camp Story for a reason. It is a really cool duty station, a very small, it's the only Army beach duty station out there. It's also where SEALs train. So it's a weird spot, but
sure.
That was cool. While I was there, I essentially never did the job other than when I arrived. So it was kind of like everything that I was hoping for before I did here. So I went up being a training NCO, etc. But as the training NCO, I would have to put together presentations for the company, and I'm a little OCD. So I bought a scanner, and my wife now, she helped me buy a scanner. This is the 90s, so this crap is expensive. I got a hand scanner, and the Army
right when it got cheap, it all became irrelevant too. That's the best part of it.
Oh, of course. Well, that's called irony. Anyway, the Army loves PowerPoint, or they did at the time for sure. It was just the best thing in the world. So using Army Logic, because I would use the scanner to scan stuff and then meticulously in a Photoshop type thing, delete everything off, the slides looked really good, and I got the reputation of knowing everything about computers because I made good slides.
Yeah. Well,
so I had to repair. So I had to repair the captain's computer or whatever else, which then gave me the reputation. So then I applied to be in tech. So I kind of accidentally got into it.
Okay, so then you move into tech in the Army. You do your time. You get out. You move into the corporate world of tech, and then you're like, you do that. How long were you in private life tech work? For quite a while, right? Like
20 plus years. Yeah.
Okay, so you do that for way too long, and then you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my face on camera for the entire world to see, and I'm going to talk about
podcast
stuff.
First. I thought first podcast did. You know, it's like I didn't want to put my face on the camera.
Well, yeah, but then you ended up on YouTube.
Yes.
Why? Okay, real briefly, why the hell did you do, like, how do you go from I'm going to do a podcast to I end up on YouTube? Like, what was your, how'd you screw that up?
Chase Hughes of the Behavior Panel.
Oh, okay. Did he told you should do YouTube or?
Well, I'd interviewed him multiple times. I met the dude, and he wanted to get more video of himself online.
Sure.
And he was like, hey, dude, go ahead and interview me. Let's do video. Put it on YouTube. I'm like, I don't do that. No, come on, man. You can do that. And I was like, I don't know. Can you use iPhones? And he's like, sure. So we scheduled a day. I was going to do the interview. And then, of course, he's like, oh, hey, dude, I can't make the interview. I got to go teach. But I did go to a conference, and the hot thing at the time, this was 2019 that I was at the conference, was streaming.
Right.
Video streaming was all the rage, StreamYard, whatever. Actually, StreamYard was around then. And I was like, well, okay, Chase is a best-selling author. He's very well-known, whatever. I can try doing a stream with him in January or whatever. And I scheduled it. And my thought was, I would typically spend 20 to 30 hours or more for every guest I had, reading their book, listening to every interview they did, studying meticulously, taking 1,000 notes, all that. I was like, well, since he's really famous, I've interviewed him before, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I could just rely on the chat. Maybe some people will show up and I could just kind of sit back and ask him questions and it would go smoothly. And I did. And I mean, it went gangbusters. For me, I think I had up to 50 people watching.
Right. Yeah.
For a first stream out is
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was huge. It was great. It flowed super well. And I was like, oh my God, this is just so much easier than all the work I'm doing. And you know what? I'm friends.
You're like, I spent like 20 hours reading books and reading all these. Yes. What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that? You're going to talk to them about themselves. Why would you read about them? That's terrible.
Yeah, I know. It's just this integrity thing that I had. But anyway, I was trying to learn it. And I was like, you know what? I know this guy, Viva Fry. And he's just crossed 100,000 subs. So that's going to be great. He'll be my second live stream. Let me invite him on. And it'll be just, this is cruise control. It was so easy. So I invited David on, and I think I had 3 or 5 people watching and had 1 comment in the chat the entire show. And I thought, oof. Oh, I guess I have to work at this shit.
Yeah.
But that's how I started.
Well, that's a very circuitous path to it. But I feel like that's how people arrive at this weird sort of endeavor. It's like you go through a bunch of stuff and then you end up, for whatever reason, doing this. And I think a lot of people either had some sort of, the people who end up successful had some sort of passion or idea for either entertainment or storytelling or journalism or whatever that makes them able to convey stories to people in a particular way that is appealing. Like that tends to be kind of the common theme. But usually, and I think partly because especially people over the age of 20 grew up in a time where for a lot of people, even though they may have wanted to do that, there wasn't a pathway to do it for most people. You had to be in a particular place. Like I always wanted to write movies and books and stuff like that, but I didn't want to be in LA and I didn't want to be in New York. So it was like the limitations on script writing and and stuff really start to hit home when you're not in those areas. And so I always thought it was never going to happen. But then suddenly, you know, I kind of, in a similar way to you, stumbled into this. Here I am on YouTube, and then it takes off. So very interesting how that happens. Now what I want to do, though, is kind of fast forward to this Alec Baldwin thing. I want to kind of get into what your coverage of the case was that is specific to this issue with the DA or with the special prosecutor. Because, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the Alec Baldwin stuff. We've talked about a bunch of it kind of prefacing this and leading up to it.
Sure.
So let's get into the specifics of what is controversial, if we can. And then we'll get into what's going on with this special prosecutor, what they've asked for, what they've threatened you with, what kind of the next steps are and stuff like that. But before we do that, I'm going to make everybody mad with
I'm
with
already doing enough. I'm making them crazy. The chat's hilarious. They're like, oh, this guy's going on forever. Shut the F. Hey, whatever.
It doesn't bother me what the chat says. The chat will do what the chat does. They know this. They know how it works. And what I want to do is hear the story, because that's what I'm interested in. And you know, like, you can never listen to the chat. If you listen to the chat, you're like, guys, if you knew the answer, you would be doing the interview. And you're not. So, you know, that's how it goes. Even though I love the chat, you can't listen to them. But what I can do is tell you guys about how to get fruits and vegetables into your diets with fieldofgreens.com. Promo code knows. Look, you get this very simple. You get some water. You get your, where the fuck did I, you get your Field of Greens powder bucket thing. You take a scoop of it, 10 grams, which would cost a lot if it were illegal drugs, but this isn't illegal drugs. This is fruits and vegetables. And you go ahead and you dump it into the water, and then you're just going to shake it like a Polaroid picture, like Outcast would say.
What does it taste like?
Well, this one tastes like lemon lime, which at first, when I first started drinking it, I thought it tasted like trash. But, you know, I have it, and they're paying me, so I kept drinking it, and now I actually like it. Like, no joke, no lie. If it was still bad, I'd still tell you, because I really do like the wild berry flavor. I think that one's fantastic. But I was not a big fan of the lemon lime at first. Now, I mean, the flavors are what they say. I just thought the lemon lime is a little too sour. And you don't have to mix it with water. You can mix it with whatever you want. You can put vodka in there if you wanted to.
I was going to ask if you did that.
I have. I have done that on stream. I'm not doing it tonight. But you wouldn't want to do the whole thing of vodka unless you were really looking to die or whatever. But you can spike it with whatever. But this is lemon lime and water. Very simple. And again, each drink is one serving of fruit and vegetables. It's perfect for people like me, because I like to eat meat and I don't like to prepare fruits and vegetables, or I don't always have them handy and ready to go. So fieldofgreens.com, promo code knows. Get yourself a little bit of that healthy benefit of a balanced diet. And thank you to them for sponsoring the stream. Also, obligatory Holocaust joke during the advertisement, because it's funny. Field of Greens, it's made of dust.
All right.
That was uncomfortable. Eric, you bring out the worst in me in certain ways.
And I'm probably the most mellow person around. So he's compensating.
Someone says, I don't get it. Good. You're a healthy, well-adjusted person. Never change. Never change. Okay. Legal Vices says, I'm just a cook. A lowly cook. Quoting Steven Seagal and Eric Hunley. Very, very true.
Dubious company.
The patrolman says, hey, Nick, I know you don't cover his story anymore, but right now Vic is dealing with some crazy chick supposedly leaking his messages all over Twitter. I heard something about that. I got to talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a bit, and I owe him a phone call, and I'm going to see him at Matsuri too. So we'll see. But, you know, I do the amount of shit people have put that guy through is crazy. And I don't want to cover it if it's going to like amplify it in any way either. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'll see if I can talk to him. KFG says the interview where Alex says it was me or her said it all. Did Alec Baldwin say it was me or her in some interview?
I don't recall that one, but okay.
That's
I mean, he talks a lot.
Yeah, like an obscene amount to everybody. Just look, I really want to tell you how I shot this woman, but it wasn't my fault. I'm going to tell you, if he was that woman.
Your client, how would you like it?
Shut the fuck up, Alec. Just shut up. Let me do my job. Shut up. Oh my God. No, I'm not. You never want your clients to talk to anybody, certainly not the police, and certainly not doing tons of interviews that could compromise your criminal defense strategy. Now, there are like, I tend to go against that narrative on certain things, like my own lawsuit against me. I talk about it whenever it's relevant to talk about, much to my lawyer's chagrin, but I do so because part of being a personality is leveraging that aspect of what you do to get the story out to people. Because what you don't want to do in a lot of these cases, especially civil cases, very specifically civil cases, is let the court define the narrative of what happened. Because very simply, there's a lot of shit that can't be brought up in court. Either it's evidence that is not allowable, not admissible or whatever. You've got witnesses with hearsay evidence that can't come in, any sort of things. And you've also got a party interested in crafting a narrative that is contrary to what the truth may be. But if they have the structure or the basic building blocks to construct that narrative, they will do that and use it against you. If you can get your version of the story out, using that is extremely valuable to people who have a platform to do so. Because at the end of the day, winning a lawsuit and losing a lawsuit is one thing. How you weather the fallout from either decision is a whole separate thing. And so I'm a firm proponent that people who have a platform and an audience, be it either like a YouTube person or like a celebrity, in civil cases, utilize that platform and the ability to actually speak to people directly to go ahead and help them understand what happened from your perspective, because you may not get that story out in court. And I think that's something that's critical to remember. Baldwin's case is a little different, though, because it's a criminal case that involves him shooting someone. And when he talks, he risks putting himself in prison, which is a completely different issue. Alec Baldwin losing a civil case isn't a big deal if he gets the next movie deal. And I said this about Johnny Depp, too. Even if Johnny Depp had lost his defamation case against Amber Heard, if he's able to build enough of a narrative for someone to give him a movie deal, he makes back the investment in the lawsuit. And that becomes worth it for him.
Before he went in. He had to. I think Johnny Depp was digging out of a hole.
Yeah.
Because he had nothing to lose. He would either lose the case and just stay where he was, maybe get a little bit out of it, or he would win and restore what was being lost or get some of it back. But he already lost all of his roles. He already lost everything. It's like Marilyn Manson's in the same boat.
Right. Marilyn is. But I also think Johnny Depp had the connections, the clout, and the name where even if he had lost the lawsuit, if he had put forth a compelling enough narrative, then what you have is the aftermath of going, look, defamation for a public person is so damn hard to win that even though we have put forth how Amber Heard lied and destroyed his life, just the nature of winning a defamation suit in America is so tough for a celebrity. And that might give permission for someone like Robert Downey Jr. or whoever to bring him back.
Right, cover. It would give him cover where they say, yeah, maybe he lost, but I believe him. I think it was compelling enough that I believe the guy, and I'm going to give him a role or whatever. Yeah.
And so I think it's important for people to make sure and do that. That's why part of the reason I talk about my case is because, one, I'm very transparent about damn near everything that happens in my life. And so if someone's suing me, I'm going to talk about it for sure. Two, I didn't do nothing wrong. That's for sure. All the things I'm accused of saying were definitely said. Like, there's video of all of it. It's all recorded and timestamped and everything, so you can see it. It just wasn't defamation. And I'm being harassed by a broke fucking retard who wants to come after me. And he hired a fucking idiot lawyer to do so. So I'm certainly not going to let them frame the narrative of what happened. I'm going to talk about it, but I'll be open and honest about all of it because, you know, one, why would you lie, especially when it's all recorded? But yeah, like I know that, you know, my lawyer has the traditional advice of, you know, I don't know if you should talk about this. He's sent in his filings at the court. Like, I really wish my client wouldn't be talking about this, but what are you going to do? You're going to stop me from talking? What, you think you're dumber than me? It's not a chance. You can't outdumb me on this stuff.
Well, yeah. Barnes is a big believer in that too.
Yeah, he is. And I've talked to I've talked to Barnes about it. And I think there is going to be a wave of lawyers who start to learn this, but law is always like 10 years behind technology and like 20 years behind culture. And so you're going to have a bunch of people adhering to this sort of idea of how people need to approach lawsuits and stuff like that is this very traditional idea. It's like, well, a lot of people aren't in that traditional position anymore. It's a growing industry of public performance as a regular middle class profession, as opposed to just an elite profession. And they might be very valuable to leverage that.
Is it actually going back to the roots? I mean, there was a time that would be a big deal and everybody would go into town, into the courthouse and would attend it. And they would be a whole lot more active. So I can't help but wonder, same way as the election of 1800, you know, we're like, oh, I can't believe they're saying this in an election. It's like, oh, go ahead and read what they said about John Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
You won't believe it. I mean, they called him a cross-dresser. I mean, there was everything there. So is this new, or is this just kind of refining some of the original, quote, American spirit?
So I have a whole lot to say on this subject. And I think we can do that on Rumble in just a second, because I think it goes well beyond law. I think it goes well beyond politics and stuff like that. And there's a lot of what we do is directly related to it. So we're going to do that. Jesus Davila gave a thumbs up as his member chat. Thank you. And TJD Show says, The Good Night, Paradise Lost on Indiegogo, an Arthurian horror comic. And I'm going to share the link. Let's see, copy the link. I'm going to share it on Rumble, on YouTube, and in, oh my God, the YouTube link is a mess. Look, let me grab the link real quick as it goes through the redirect process. Check out The Good Night on Indiegogo. DJD Show has been a supporter of the channel for a very long time, and check out his comic that he's been making on Indiegogo. And hold on, I'm going to share it in the Rumble link or the Rumble chat, and then we are going to move over to Rumble right now. So there's a 20-second audio stinger that's going to play as we transition harder than Dylan Mulvaney over to Rumble. And we would appreciate it if you join us over there. The link is at the top of the chat. It is a pinned comment, and it's also in the description on YouTube. If you're one of the people who does not follow over to Rumble, I will see you tomorrow for my interview with Andrea Burkhart. Thank you so much for watching, but I hope to see you over on Rumble, and we'll see you guys in just a bit. Peace. Peace.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,